Welcome, everyone, to the SUST Alumni Grad School panel of 2021. My name is Mike Bryson. I am Professor and Director of Sustainability Studies at Roosevelt, and I am thrilled to host 5 of our recent graduates from Sustainability Studies who have all gone on to graduate programs in a variety of fields and at different institutions. We're really excited to have folks here today to answer questions about and reflect on and just have a good chat about their graduate school experiences. And we are recording this event today so that it can be archived on the sustainability blog and be accessed by folks after the event. I'm going to briefly introduce the panelists and then turn it over to them one after another to introduce themselves in a little more depth. And we'll have a series of questions that they'll go through. And then I hope for at the end of the program that we have time to take questions from the audience. So I'm going to start just by letting you know who all is in the house. We have Yesenia Balcazar, who is a master's student at UIC. Will Marie Medina Cortez, also a master's degree student at UIC. Lindsay Sharp, who is an MA student at Wayne State University in Detroit. Moses Viveros will be joining us shortly, and he is our one graduate recently finished up at Chatham University, where he earned his MA and MBA. And last but not least, Charlton Zimmerman, who is an MPA student at the University of Delaware. What I'd like to do is I'll just call on folks, and in this first round, I'd just like you to introduce yourselves by noting what year you graduated from Roosevelt and what you studied when you were here. Obviously, you're all sustainability alumni, but some of you minored or double majored in different things. I thought it'd be nice to highlight that. And then give us a preview of the graduate program that you're currently in, what it is and what your role in that program is. I'm going to start with Lindsay.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Sharp. I graduated from Roosevelt in 2016 in the Sustainability Studies program. I had transferred to Roosevelt. I had already sort of had a background, like almost a minor in anthropology. So when I was looking for grad schools, I was looking for programs that related to that. So I ended up at Wayne State in the anthropology program, which is a really cool program. It feeds into a program called the TRUST, which is Transformative Research in Urban Sustainability, which is a doctoral program. So that's sort of the eventual goal. But they provided like a really cool path to get there through a wide array of like interdisciplinary fields.
Sounds great. Thank you, Lindsay. How about Will Marie next?
Hi, everyone. I'm Will Marie Medina. I graduated in 2019, and I was actually a transfer also to the Sustainability Studies program from UIC. I had been previously studying anthropology there, and after a brief hiatus, I wanted to go back to a program that had a little bit of an interdisciplinary focus and focused on social justice. Right now, I am at UIC studying in the Museum and Exhibit Studies program, which is a 2-year program that focuses on also social justice issues within museums and exhibitions, and also encourages interdisciplinary work. My role in that, and it's sort of very open, so you can sort of go about in any direction in museums and galleries, but I'm really interested in climate work and how climate change and environmental justice, environmental racism is discussed in the museum setting.
Thank you, Will Marie. Appreciate your introduction. How about we move to Charlton next? And I'm glad to see Moses has joined us. Hello, Moses.
Perfect. Hello, Moses. Hello, everyone. I'm Charlton. I graduated from Roosevelt in 20 2019, yes, 2019. Seems like a lifetime ago, just a few year and a half ago. Of course, my major was sustainability. I had a few minors, education, political science, history, because I switched my major 4 or 5 times before landing in the wonderful sustainability department. Currently, I'm a student at the University of Delaware, where I am in their Master's of Public Administration and Nonprofit Management major. It's a unique program. It's a fully online program. I did that kind of because of COVID, so I'm actually not too far away from you, Lindsay. I'm in Grosse Pointe. I did a half semester at Wayne State in their urban planning department before COVID shut everything down and made me reevaluate my life, kind of, as I'm sure all of you can relate to a little bit as current or recent graduates of undergrad. But yeah, that's pretty much it with me.
Thank you, Charlton. Yesenia, you're next.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm Yesenia. I graduated from Roosevelt in 2018. Of course, I majored in sustainability studies, did a double minor in psychology and environmental science. And currently I am in UIC's MUP program. So it's their Master of Urban Planning and Policy. It's a 2-year program. I'm in my last week, so I'm very excited about that. And my role there, well, I'm specializing in environmental planning and policy. I have particular interest in community development and organizing for environmental justice communities. I'm born and raised in the Southeast Side, which is a historically EJ community here in Chicago. And so that's where a lot of my inspiration, motivation comes from. But yeah, that's all I've got.
Thanks, Yesenia. Great to see you. And last but not least, Moses, wonderful for you to join us.
Hello, everyone. Apologies for being a little late. Could you just remind me what we're going over in our introductions?
Yeah, this is a very brief intro, the year you graduated, what you studied while you were at Roosevelt, and then just a quick preview of your grad program, understanding that you'll have a chance to go more in depth about it in a few minutes.
Yeah, of course. So I graduated in 2017 from Roosevelt from their sustainability studies program, minored in psychology. And in 2018, I enrolled in the dual master's program at Chatham University in business administration and food studies. And basically, it's kind of a dual program that goes into, how to build more resilient, sustainable food systems, while also just learning about, different business aspects. So to kind of underline that, but to also expand on it, by building sustainable businesses, so on and so on. I believe you're muted, Mike.
I think you're muted.
Sorry, can't do a Zoom without screwing that up. Congratulations. I was trying to congratulate Moses on finishing his program this past fall. I know it was quite the odyssey, and I'm looking forward to hearing some stories about that. And also, I want to extend appreciation for everybody here who is currently in school and probably a little stressed right now and quite busy with end of term assignments and exams and whatnot. I really appreciate your time at the tail end of Earth Month. I'd like to move on to our second question, which really gives you a chance to delve into the particular program, as well as perhaps the institution you're in a bit more. How did you decide on that program, and why is it in particular a good fit for you? So I want to start with Will Marie on this one.
So I knew about the museum studies program when I was at UIC, and I've always been sort of a fan of museums and galleries for being places that really allow people from all different parts of life and the world to sort of come together and interact in these very specific spaces. I really wanted to continue to build my scholarship in social justice. I felt that based on what I learned in the sustainability studies program, that was something that I thought was really valuable and really important to continue to build on. And so with my program, I picked it, one, because I knew about it. Two, they didn't require a GRE, which made my life incredibly easier when I was applying. And I also took a look at some of the coursework there and the faculty who worked there. And there was a lot of faculty working on social justice topics. So such as like LGBTQ issues in museums, representation of BIPOC communities, so Black, Indigenous, people of color. And there was also some faculty working on like climate work within the program. So it was really a program that really allowed me to explore sort of any pathway, and also encourages like the combination of different theories and ideas from all different sorts of fields. And so I thought it was just a good fit because it really allowed me to sort of expand on like what my personal interests were and sort of build on that. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thanks, Will Marie. I can say that in 25 years of teaching at Roosevelt, I have not personally known any other student to go into museum studies. So I was really excited when I heard that was what you're doing. And it was immensely gratifying to one of my colleagues, Julian Curvis Peterhans, who lives at the Field Museum practically, sleeps there sometimes, and has taught many Roosevelt students at the Field Museum. I know Lindsay has fond memories of her time at the Field. So it's really exciting that you have gone into museum studies. How about that sounds like a natural segue to Lindsay.
Yeah, so my sort of interests are pretty similar to Will Marie's, and I think you can probably also testify to how well sort of sustainability and anthropology and social justice, and especially in an urban setting like Detroit, it just works really well together. So Wayne State is a really good research university. It's just located right downtown in the middle of the city. They have a lot of really great different departments that I think sustainability studies are very well suited to. I think Charlton, you mentioned the urban planning. So that's also part of the TRS program. There's a really great urban planning department. The anthropology department, like Will Marie said, I was interested in because of my interest in sort of people nature interactions, especially like built and natural environments. So having the ability to go into a program and sort of bulk up on theory, but also get to do field work and research and engage in practice was like really, really appealing to me. And so far it's been a really great experience.
That's terrific, Lindsay. Thank you for that insight about your program. Let's stick with the Michiganders and switch over to Charlton.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate that. For me, it's kind of unique. I did do a semester at Wayne State, so I feel like a little bit of this was trial and error, which I do not recommend at the graduate level. Undergrad, switch your majors 10 times. Couldn't encourage that more, to try new things. Graduate school, don't do it. Save yourself some money, just personally, from my personal experience. But yeah, I was not aware of the University of Delaware's MPA program at all when I was at Roosevelt. And to be honest, I don't even know if I was really looking into public administration. It kind of fell on my lap. I was in an internship post undergrad degree with a state senator in Lansing. And I thought I was going to pursue more public policy analysis, which is a specific concentration for an MPA at UDL, kind of a specialization. And I thought that's what I was going to do. And again, COVID kind of made me rethink of just values of things I want to do, personal interest, professional interest, different stuff like that. So I've probably changed my mind on my concentration a few times. With my current graduate degree, I promise I'm going to stick here at the University of Delaware. But for public administration, I was really looking for things like management, human resources, stuff I didn't necessarily get with my undergrad degree. So I'm just kind of trying to build a nice broad spectrum of my resume through what is now my master's program. And that's really it. I wasn't aware of it even more than 2 years ago before I even started. So kind of did a lot of research. I encouraged doing a lot of research into a lot of different master's programs or doctoral programs, depending on what you want, post bachelor's, and just spend a good amount of time, diving into professors, courses you might take, and kind of weighing your options between professional and personal interests.
Thank you, Charlton, very much. Appreciate that. Let me go to Yesenia.
Hey, so I guess what led me to the MUP program at UIC was really just connections that I had made through organizing that I did in my community during my last semester at Roosevelt with the Southeast Environmental Task Force. And we worked a lot with the Great Cities Institute, which is an institute that comes from the College of Urban Planning and UIC. And at the time, they were starting efforts to create a revitalization program for the Southeast side. And one of the people working on that was Jose Acosta, which he graduated from the MUP program, I believe, a couple years ago now. He graduated right before I was about to start. And so I knew that I had this interest in urban planning and believing that it could really help me achieve my goals to just bringing revitalization to communities that look like mine. And just the connections were there, the networking was there, and that's ultimately what really inspired me to pursue the program. And through all of its specializations, through environmental, community development, economics, even spatial, they're all very social justice oriented. I don't think I've taken a single course in the program that hasn't brought up social justice in some way. Even in my GIS course, which is the mapping software for planners, it was brought into that as well. And a lot of the projects that the students did for that centered on equity, whether it was transit related, environmental justice related, and economic development related. So the connections were ultimately what led me to it. But while actually going through the program, I just really enjoyed that aspect that social justice was always brought into the conversation. And I think especially for the urban planning field, which has been so traditional for so long, I think it's very refreshing to kind of see that sort of change in course. And I think the MUP program is great for that at UIC. So
It's great. Thank you for that overview, Yesenia. It does sound like there's a changing of the guard happening in urban planning, and it's exciting to think that that's happening in Chicago, which is an iconic city in urban planning history. Moses, how about your take on all this? For you?
Yeah, so for me, I came across this specific program when I was compiling a graduate studies database for the sustainability studies program. So I came across my specific program. I was like, this actually sounds pretty neat. And I went to visit the university. And so Chatham University is in Pittsburgh, and they have a dedicated school of sustainability that's outside, like 30, 40 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. And it has like this vast urban farm, or just like big farm. There's chickens, goats, like all this livestock on campus. So that to me already drew me in, because I think I saw that the program was going to be very hands-on, which is the way that I learn best. And not only that, but I can think what really cemented my interest in like sustainability in general was when I took my first sustainability class at Roosevelt, and that was the food sustainability class. I forget the exact title of it, but that really carried me throughout the rest of my studies at Roosevelt and when I was seeking out a graduate program. So being able to get a degree and where I could learn more about food sustainability really appealed to me. And in addition to this, the food studies program at Chatham University specifically looks at the food system through a very holistic lens. So I tell people that it looks through it through a political lens, a cultural lens, culinary, and also just like, if I didn't say sustainable, and just like overall like environmental justice lens. So so the first year of your program, you start off by going through those different focuses. And then for your second year, you get to really focus on the area that you want to focus on. And for me, that was environmental justice. So I had a really big interest in learning about how to create resilient food systems, not only from a sustainability standpoint, but from an equity standpoint. So it was really nice to have staff that was willing to back up my studies in that realm. And also have a go-to university that was so invested in just like the overall Pittsburgh area, where I could be connected with so many orgs that were already doing that work. So there's definitely the opportunity for me to really expand on my studies beyond Chatham itself. So yeah, that was really nice. And that's ultimately what drew me and kept me in that program.
Thank you, Moses. I couldn't help but see some pointy ears. Do you have a friend with you that you can show? Oh, there we go.
I do, yeah. She's a very needy Chihuahua. I got her like 2 weeks ago.
She
Yeah.
looks very nice.
She wanted to join in on the Zoom call. She hasn't gone to graduate school, but she just wanted to see what her options are.
It might be said that a good survival mechanism for graduate school is to have a furry friend of some kind.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Thank you for your really informative answers, everyone, on that first question. I'd like to segue into my second, which is really to get your advice on the search and application process. Moses alluded to it when he said he actually was creating a database, and I vaguely remember maybe giving him that assignment when he was my right-hand man, so to speak, in the sustainability program a few years ago for a work study gig. And I'm immensely gratified that one of the programs you found really caught your eye. And then you went through that process of hard work to apply to it. So Moses, why don't we stick with you for just a minute? And could you talk about that searching and application process? Because you really put yourself in a position as a senior at Roosevelt where you could have applied to a lot of different programs and gone in a lot of different directions, I would assume. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, I'm going to be honest, one of the major things that drew me towards, one of the other major things that drew me towards the program at Chatham specifically is that there is no GRE requirement. I'm just very anti any standardized testing. So when I saw that, I was like, sign me up. But yeah, before I started creating that database, I didn't really have any interest in going to grad school because I was just kind of, I had just gone through 4 years of undergrad and I was just like, do I really want to add 2 more years of graduate work on top of this? And I took a year off. My plan immediately after graduating from Roosevelt wasn't to go to grad school. So I took a year off, worked. But then, I think that really helped to just like push me into the program because, I recognize that I miss being surrounded in spaces where we could have conversations about, sustainability and just like equity and just like what that looks like. And I realized that I didn't necessarily have like the tools or just like knowledge necessarily built up to push me into positions specifically with food justice. So I wanted to build that up for myself. So yeah, so I looked at the program at Chatham University, but I was also looking at programs at UC Boulder, Colorado State, not necessarily within food, but also just like graduate sustainability programs in general. Sorry, she's growling. Stop. And why I didn't apply for those programs was that one, didn't really speak to my interests, and also there wasn't they didn't offer enough scholarship money to get me through the program financially. So that was a huge barrier to me, and I realized I didn't want to put myself in that financial burden after graduating. So my advice is definitely find something that caters to your interests. Don't sell yourself short, and find something that's going to support you financially through the program as well. At Chatham, I got a pretty nice scholarship that covered about half of my program. So that was really nice. I graduated with a little less debt than I would have if I didn't. But yeah, just keep looking out there. Don't settle for the first thing that you come across. There's definitely a bunch of programs out there that are really going to speak to you.
Thanks, Moses. How about the same question from Will Marie?
So similar to what Moses said, I also sort of knew about my program already, and I applied to only that one because it didn't have a GRE. As I said before, that I also agree I'm not a big fan of standardized testing, and I was an older student when I graduated from Roosevelt, so I was just sort of tired of sort of all that academic business stuff that you need to do to sort of move forward. But I always knew I wanted to go to grad school. And so I looked at the program. I searched for other museum studies program as well, but it's not, there's not many programs across the state or the country in general. And most of them, or actually all of them, are going to be either like certificates or master's programs. I needed to stay local because I am married and I did not want to make my partner move to another state and uproot their life as well, so I could pursue my dreams. So just sort of being respectful of that. And then about the like search or about the application process, since it was the only grad school that I applied to, I definitely made sure I had a really great reason as to why I applied to only one program, because they do ask you that in the interview process. And so I had to really like validate why I was putting all my money in one pot. And just echoing some of the financial stuff as well, making sure that the program that you're applying to provides some kind of scholarship or tuition waiver. My program in general, or UIC's graduate programs, from what I understand, provide tuition waivers for those who either get like graduate assistant, research assistant, or teaching assistant positions. And that's something that's very competitive as well. So something to keep in mind, but it's definitely doable because you can get, you know, generally like a position within many different departments, not just the department that you work in. And then also researching like faculty coursework, because not all programs are going to sort of teach you the same things as part of their core classes, and generally like what the program requirements are as well. So sort of understanding like what your expected output is. And then also just going to open houses or asking the program if there's any students you can speak to, so that you can sort of inquire as to what their experiences are, what they like, what they dislike, what they wish could be better with the program. Because going through grad school, at least even in my first year, I've realized there are things that I would have liked that my program doesn't provide, but there's also things that I think are really great that sort of offset those things. So it's a good perspective to get if there's a couple of different programs that you're really interested in.
Great, thank you so much. Lindsay, how about you on this question?
Yeah, I mean, those are, so far we've gotten some really good advice. I would say starting from sort of the undergraduate level, what helped me was when I was thinking about applying to grad school and knowing that I was going to have writing samples or, you know, something to show what I can do. Just sort of figuring out what interests you and making sure that you're taking advantage of any opportunities that you can in the program. I know you mentioned when I was at the Field Museum with Dr. Kurbis, and the work that I did under him was a huge part of me getting into the program I did. Even though it wasn't geared towards urban sustainability, just being able to make the connections between what you're doing in the sustainability program and express how it's connected to what you want to do with that program was a huge, you know, that's a huge part of the application process, I think. And the other advice I think I would have is, you know, when you are researching your professors, especially when you're researching who your advisor is and what kind of work they've done, is just to get really familiar with the people in your department. They're all there to help you. They're all there to like encourage you and tell you what it is that you need to know. And don't be afraid to tell your advisor what it is that you need. And yeah, everybody there is like really, they're there to help you, but you definitely have to take the initiative and be prepared to do the work and reach out when you need it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I'm also thinking about earlier comment by Yesenia when she talked about how she had a lot of connections that led her to apply to UIC. Yesenia, would you like to comment or maybe expand upon, that application process? Did you apply to other schools? And, how did you tackle the rigors of those applications?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was going through the application process, the thing that helped me out the most was, this actually touches directly upon to what Lindsay was just saying, but I reached out to the admissions advisor for the MUP program, and she really was like my point person throughout the whole process, because before anything else, I was able to meet with her and ask her any questions I wanted. So of course we covered tuition, different tuition waivers, expectations for the application, and also with the GRE, I think that was especially helpful. I wasn't as fortunate, I had to take it, but she did advise me that, you know, not as a way to sort of cheat the system, but she was like, hey, I'll give you a heads up. We don't look at the English or the math scores at all, just the writing. So she's like, if you completely bomb the others, if you don't finish them, we're not going to care. Just do stellar on that writing portion. And like, that's the most important part. But just, so she was just really helpful in kind of giving it to me straightforward and giving me like helpful advice like that. And also, I think the most important part for the application process is those sorts of personal essays. I think that, sort of like how Lindsay was saying, being able to make the connection from your work experience to what you want to study is so critical. But maybe even a notch above that, just showing that you're passionate about what you want to go into, I think is like above anything else what those admissions counselors are going to look at, why you should be in the program, why it matters to you. And I know especially for UIC, they give out a handful of tuition waivers for graduate students in their first year based upon that, like exhibiting just how badly they want to attend that program and why. And I was fortunate enough to receive that for my first year. So that was incredibly helpful to say the least. But yeah, so just the main takeaways, having the point person, reaching out to those admissions advisors, and really making it clear in your applications why you want to attend that program, why that field of study matters to you and correlates to your experience.
Very well said. Charlton, what would you like to add to this about the search and application process?
Yes, I wish I would have listened to all that advice like 2 years ago. That would have helped a lot. Yeah, I just to kind of add a little nugget at the end. Take your time. I feel like there's kind of a stigma right now around like, oh, you have to go right to grad school. You can't take a gap year, or it might just be me, but I definitely felt that pressure, and I went into a program with very little research, just because I felt like I had to choose a program, and I regretted it pretty quickly. And I got to actually take some time because of COVID. My gap year was COVID, and then I started this past summer of 2020 in my program. So I would just reiterate, take some time. If you feel like you need to take time, it's okay if you take more than just the summer to decide whether you want to go to grad school, what program that is, what your professional interests are going to be 10, 20 years down the road. It's a big decision. So definitely take your time.
Yeah, good advice. And that echoes what Moses said at the beginning of this session, this particular round of questions, that usefulness of his gap year to help him really hone his focus on what he wanted to study. Well, what I'd love for you to do now, panelists, is reflect back on some of your favorite or most meaningful or most useful Roosevelt experiences. And I'm really thinking about our current students here, folks who might be pretty young in their student careers. Perhaps they're freshmen, sophomore. They have no clue if they want to go on to graduate school. But not just the people who are on the verge of, who are really thinking seriously about it and are on the verge of applying, but what Roosevelt learning experiences were most useful and or enjoyable to you and have positively impacted your grad school experience? I'm going to just open it up to anybody who wants to talk rather than calling on people, and I'm sure we'll you all get your words in.
Yeah, I'll go first. I think it's everything. I think it's every experience, every good experience I had, every bad experience I had in a classroom, in a with CASAC and SAC and some of the other organizations I was a part of my last few years at Roosevelt. I don't know if I can particularly pinpoint one specific experience because I was an education major for 2 years and I thought I was going to be teacher. And then I was a political science major and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go into politics. And then it was like, oh, well, this sustainability thing is pretty cool. I had one class. Let me go talk to Professor Bryson. And one little conversation later, I'm a sustainability major, and that ends up being kind of my whole degree and framework to kind of just think about life in general. And I think I would just take sustainability and try to apply it as broad as you can. It's not just pertaining to the environment. I mean, I've had a lot of classes in management dealing with business strategy, strategic plans, diversity plans that I think I've incorporated sustainability in every single one of those classes where you wouldn't really think sustainability fits. So just be open with what you think sustainability is in the professional world, because it might be public policy, public administration, it could be food, it could be agriculture, it could be a lot of things. So just stay as open as possible, I think.
Yeah, Charlton, I really like what you said about sort of using sustainability as a framework for approaching pretty much anything you can think of that you might want to do. Yeah, I think, when I was at Roosevelt, I was a non-traditional student, so I was also a little bit older. I was also working full time, so I did a lot of my classes online. So I think what was really helpful for me was the chances that we did get to go out into the city and actually sort of see how these systems interacted in the real world. I know in the food class that Moses talked about, I think we had gone to an organic farm. I think at one point we visited the plant in Chicago, the indoor vertical farm. And again, having opportunities to do internships at the Field Museum or any other places that sort of get you out and practicing what it is that you're learning, I think is like a really beneficial opportunity that I was really glad to have had at Roosevelt.
And Lindsay, I commend you for taking advantage of those opportunities, even though you were primarily an online student. I remember that very well. And I think I have a memory of you coming on a waste field trip that I organized. Didn't we go to a wastewater treatment plant or some other facility down on the south side?
I don't think I was able to make that one, but there were other ones that I think that there's a tour of the actual Roosevelt building that I was
Right,
able to
okay.
attend where we had gone and
I
showed
think,
some of the, yeah.
yeah, I think that's what I'm thinking of. So it's kind of an interesting, it was a testament to you. That was like not a required thing for you, as I recall. You took it upon yourself to do it as a way to get involved in the university community, and I think that's certainly an important thing while you're an undergraduate. Anybody else want to chime in here about some of your key Roosevelt experiences and how they impacted where you are in grad school right now?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to Lindsay's advice and experiences. Definitely, I think for me, it was definitely two parts. One of them definitely being the hands-on learning experiences. So I mean, anything that takes you outside of the four walls of Roosevelt's really helped me to just like learn how to, you know, how to work with other organizations. And it also just exposed me to different things that we didn't necessarily talk about in the classroom. So, you know, I did all the service learning courses that I could take. You know, I did the class at the Field Museum. We did the service and learning course at Eden Place Nature Center. Also did that study abroad trip with Bethany Barrett in Vancouver and Washington, which wasn't necessarily a sustainability course, but it taught me about environmental justice and how it relates to sustainability. So those, if you have an opportunity, so if there's an opportunity to do it, I would definitely recommend anyone to take those courses as well. But I also think, you know, just like the overall, like the core commitment to social justice at Roosevelt really prepared me specifically for my focus in creating resilient and just food systems, just because it really got me thinking about sustainability beyond, you know, environmental aspects, but it got me thinking about the people aspect, who's affected, how disproportionately are different communities affected by certain aspects of, you know, environmental issues, and how can we work towards a more equitable and sustainable future. So definitely all of those just really helped to just like build a foundation that I was able to continue building on in grad school. And it also just really pushed me to seek out experiences outside of Chatham itself. So I was able to engage with a bunch of different orgs and just like continue my education there.
Lil Marie or Yesenia, do either one of you want to chip in here?
Yeah, I can chime in. So, I guess if I'm putting it into context directly with, you know, my grad program, then I definitely had a very defining class that sort of made me come to that decision, which was the Urban Issues course with Dr. Stephanie Farmer. And because throughout my sustainability studies, you know, what was especially valuable to me was learning about environmental justice and how communities are specifically impacted by the oversaturation of industry and pollution. And it was when I took her course that, you know, through my eyes, I saw, okay, here's this sort of fundamental way that I can create change at the policy level, right? You know, because I was going through my experience doing it grassroots, but I thought, okay, this is the way that I can make real change, right? You know, at the time, it's a lot harder than that. It's not that simple. But so I remember, you know, going to her office hours and asking her, like, well, telling her, I want to be a city planner. Like, what's it gonna take for me to get there? And you know, and she told me, like, okay, you're gonna need a master's degree in city planning. And it's like, okay, gotcha. Like, we'll roll with that. But her course was just very, very instrumental to my overall decision and pursuing, just making that first decision that I wanted to pursue, you know, this field. I wanted to be a planner. I, you know, ultimately with my community in mind, with EJ communities in mind, and how I could be sort of join, at the time it's growing now, but join this, you know, small population of city planners that actually were vouching for these low income communities. So, but yeah, that was very specific. But yeah.
Dr. Farmer will be immensely gratified when I tell her that story. Especially, and I think it's wonderfully apt since the sustainability and sociology programs kind of metaphorically got married. We joined together in a new department, and we have been since 2017, right before Yesenia graduated. So my faculty colleagues in that department were really looking at ways to integrate sociology and sustainability more meaningfully, rather than just, you know, attending the same department meeting. So it's really cool that you mentioned that class and as really formative and inspiring for you, Yesenia. That's great. Will Marie, how about you?
I think like some of the other people here, I had a specific class that I felt was also really formative. And I think it was similar to the class that Lindsay you mentioned and Moses as well. If I remember correctly, it was the service and sustainability course with you, Mike. And I took it all online. Uh, but the ability to sort of choose an organization to sort of participate with really led me down sort of a rabbit hole of understanding more in depth like how grassroots organizations work and how important community is to the topic of sustainability and sort of the general progress that that we feel is important in society in order to create a more just future. um, and I just think overall like the variety of classes in the core program of the sustainability studies program like really gave me a well-rounded view of what sustainability studies is and what it could be, and is just really helpful for bringing that into any future work. I feel like every aspect, even though I don't work in food or urban planning or waste management, I feel like all of that stuff is just still so relevant in my work to varying degrees. So I'm just really thankful for like the variety of classes in the program that I was required to take, but they were so helpful.
Thank you so much, everybody. This is just absolutely fascinating for me to hear you reflect on all these questions from your different experiences and life trajectories. Um, and I'm thinking of maybe a final question to run by you all as we conclude our hour together is I'm interested to know what's next for you. You know, most 4 out of the 5 of you are still in school, so you're still working on. Although in Yesenia's case, getting very close to graduation, you're putting yourself on a pathway to the future. What's next for you, or what are you just working on right now that's really cool and really interesting to you that you'd like to highlight? And I'd like to start with Moses because he graduated and he's got a pretty cool sounding job right now in the city. Moses, tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, of course. So yeah, I immediately after I graduated, I kind of went through a couple of different jobs just because, job searching in COVID is not fun. So I'm just going to put that out there for y'all. Don't feel discouraged if you're looking for a job and no one's getting back to you. It's tough as hell. So, just hang in there. But luckily for me, I landed a position 2-ish months ago at Brave Space Alliance. So I've been working as their Crisis Pantry Network Program Coordinator. For those of you who do know, who aren't familiar with the organization, they're an LGBTQIA plus organization in Hyde Park. And in my position, I help oversee operations for 2 additional pantry sites in addition to our pantry at Hyde Park. So it's a lot of coordinating with different orgs and just suppliers to make sure we have enough food where we need it and to make sure people are getting the food that they need. And for me, it's been really nice because it's feeds in directly to what my thesis work focus on, which is how can we create more ideal conditions in the emergency food system, specifically for Black, Brown, Indigenous, LGBTQIA plus communities, just because I know that existing resources can be particularly harmful for that particular community. So it's been nice to put some of those theories to work and to also learn different ways that I can apply these different concepts. But it's also really awesome to be speaking with or to just be working with all these different organizations throughout Chicago that are invested in doing very similar work. Just because it's really nice and uplifting to know that, we're not the only ones out here. There is a bunch of other orgs that are committed to doing all this work. But yeah, it's been really nice. I'm enjoying it so far, and I'm looking forward to see how this role continues progressing for me.
Thank you so much, Moses. How about others? What are you working on or studying right now or participating in that is really cool and interesting to you?
I can speak. a little bit about that. So right now I am finishing up my first year, and I'm currently working on two different things. So one, I'm working with a group of faculty at UIC that's part of a climate justice pilot group that's trying to look at sort of the intersections between Latino studies and climate change, which is really neat because there's not a lot of work in that research area. And I'm also working on a traveling exhibit that talks about climate justice in La Villita, or like little village area. And so that's some of the stuff that I've been working on, and it's really helped inform me of like my future path as a scholar, to sort of trying to understand like how climate change and exhibitions can be put together, including, environmental justice, and possibly, how the Latino community across the world, really is just disproportionately affected by some of these issues.
Thanks, Will Marie. Lindsay, you wanted to say something too.
Oh, I was just gonna get it out of the way. Yeah, so what's next for me is this next year I'll be going into my thesis project. So not looking forward to that. I'm probably gonna be coming up with a project that I can use to then apply for the PhD program in urban sustainability, which is one of the main reasons I wanted to come to Wayne State. I think this summer I'm on a team of researchers out of the university who are working with Ford Motor Company. And we're actually studying how small business fleets can use Ford's electric vehicles, like what their daily habits are. It's from a very like anthropological standpoint, but it's really interesting just again how much, even when you don't expect it, we are working with sustainability issues. And another project I'm sort of working on in a more long-term sense is my research partner and I are working with a nonprofit in the Brightmoor neighborhood of Detroit who are looking to install a green stormwater infrastructure on some land that they've bought from the Detroit Land Bank Authority. So this project sort of brushes up against a lot of social justice issues, sustainability issues, land equity issues. It's a lot of really interesting sort of, it's a very interdisciplinary project that's really exciting to be a part of. And I'm really glad that I sort of have the background that enabled me to do it.
Sounds fantastic. You got a lot going on. That's really great. Glad the university and the community is providing those opportunities for you, Lindsay. Yesenia, I'm kind of curious about how that Chicago Aviation Department internship is going for you.
Yeah, it's been very interesting. It's definitely outside of any sort of my background type of experience. So I currently have a planning internship at the Chicago Department of Aviation for Midway Airport. And so that has given me a lot of exposure to mostly seeing the operations of the airport, both on the airfield and on the land side of things. Ultimately, I mean, at this position I have until October, so it's a year-long position, but I think, if I'm being completely honest, what I'm most excited for is to have time again once I graduate, to be able to get back into organizing, especially because, my community is taking that very big undertaking of opposing the relocation of General Iron. And I'm just, unfortunately, I've had to miss so many town halls and press releases and things like that because of conflicting schedules and things of that nature. But I appreciate absolutely getting some exposure in this field that's completely different from what I'm used to, although I very much miss my roots. And once I complete this sort of position at Midway, I'm very excited to look into planning jobs that are centered around community development. That's what I'm especially interested in. So yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Yesenia. I'm sure the folks at the Southeast Environmental Task Force and other friends on the Southeast side would be joyful to hear you come to hear you say you can't wait to get back to community organizing. They're like, yes, come back. Charlton, how about from your vantage point in your program with a ways to go? What excites you right now, and what are you looking forward to doing?
I'll tell you what doesn't excite me right now is my current human resource management course. But other than that, yeah, I do. I have about a year and a half to go. So I feel like I'm just dipping my toe in my program. I'm definitely looking for entry-level jobs and internships. I will not sugarcoat that. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I want to get into, or what exactly I want to get into, should I say, in the public administration space. Is it still more governmental, legislative oriented, like I was with my internship pre-COVID? Is it more, working for a nonprofit, and what exactly department would I be working in? So I'm still figuring a lot out. Kind of open about that, just because I'm open to learning new things within the public administration space, in how I can tie that specifically to sustainability. I use my sustainability lens, if you will, to view everything within my program. So I don't have much, and I think I'm kind of okay with that for the first time ever, which is definitely something new for me. When you're always going as an undergrad student, you have work, you have class, you have extracurriculars, so you have a lot going on, and then you graduate and it's like, oh, now I'm done. And it's weird because you just went to school for the last 16 years of your life. So yeah, that's about it.
I think that perspective is really an important one to share, though, Charlton, because I'm sure a lot of folks are in that position, either newly graduated or unsure of that path, and knowing that there are so many options available. It's easy in hindsight to think that where one ends up is inevitable, but as Moses attested, finding a job and in this environment is a challenge, even if you're a rock star student. And because there's a lot of other talented people out there. And I think your own advice of just being patient and allowing yourself some time is really good advice. Wow, I'm bowled over by how insightful and articulate our conversation has been today. It has been so great reconnecting with all of you and hearing about your stories, your experiences, what led you to the grad program that you're in or you just finished up at, and what's ahead of you, which is really exciting. I guess I want to open it. We just have a couple minutes left. If anyone has something that they really wanted to bring to the table for this session, now's your chance to speak up and maybe give a little more advice or just reflect on something that you heard somebody else say. Any final comments from our gallery?
I just want to say, for those of you that are working on your thesis or will start working on your thesis, don't be like me and leave it to the last possible moment, because it will definitely consume your life and it won't be fun trying to get everything done when it's supposed to be done. So definitely make a plan, try to stick to it. Don't be discouraged if you don't stick to it all the time, but just make that plan. It's definitely going to be super helpful in the long run. And also, when you do finish your grad program, it's going to be really weird having all this free time. Just take a moment to sit in it. Don't feel like you need to rush into the next thing, because that's what I kind of tried to do and it just wasn't fun. But just take your time. Just take a time to reflect on your program, just see what you really want to do, what your next steps are, and who knows where it could lead you.
I just want to reiterate what some other people have said too about taking time between your degrees. I think I graduated from Roosevelt, and because of a job transfer that my spouse had, I moved to Detroit, and I wasn't able to start grad school right away. But having that time, it was really helpful for allowing me to figure out what it was I wanted to do. And I forget who said it, but I just wanted to reiterate, there's absolutely no shame in just taking the time to figure out exactly what it is you want to do and go for it that way. You don't have to follow some sort of linear progression of what you think you should be doing.
I think also just echoing some of the same comments that were made here earlier, you don't have to have everything figured out when you enter grad school, but just like was mentioned earlier, just knowing how your focus and area fits into, your program is really important, because imposter syndrome is totally real. And you're going to encounter people in your cohorts who know things that you don't know, and you can't let, and might actually have their path figured out already. And so just knowing that you are your own person, you're going at your own path and your own pace, and that's important, for just being in this kind of environment as well.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, Will Marie, my program is all online, so it's mostly people much older than me with obviously a lot of experience and are in the administrative space, and that's it's been tough for me because they always talk about their experience, and I'm like, well, I just came from undergrad, so I don't know, I can't talk a lot of the talk they talk, kind of. So yeah, it's just be true to yourself, believe in yourself, and it'll be all right. Everything will figure itself out eventually.
Yeah, kind of just piggybacking on that. I mean, because I love that this was brought up. I know that I personally struggled so much with imposter syndrome, like throughout my entire grad program. But I think the most helpful thing is really just reminding yourself that everyone is bringing something different to the table, and whatever you're bringing to the table is just as valuable as those other skills that people have. And I think that's definitely important. Those reminders, your own skills, why you started in the first place, why you care about this specific thing is definitely what's gonna carry you through it 100%.
So well said. And I really appreciate everyone's reflections here, and bringing up that important issue of imposter syndrome. It's something that I've been talking about with some of my students at Roosevelt right now who are in the McNair Scholars Program and who feel that in their experiences. And I just want to say that, from my perspective, all of you are the real deal. And I'm extremely proud of all of you and so grateful that you have pursued your education according to your own compasses and been successful at it and are working hard. I think all of you share some key traits, and one of them is a tremendous work ethic, but also great enthusiasm and dedication to your scholarship, just from my knowing you during your years at Roosevelt. And those two things, maybe even more than just, well, I know you're all incredibly intelligent folks, but there's a lot of very, very smart people who don't finish graduate school because it requires grit and dedication and self-motivation and stick-to-itiveness and a lot of hard work. And you have to be able to overcome obstacles. So I commend you all for doing that in spades. This concludes the formal discussion of our alumni panel. And in doing so, I will stop our recording, and I'll just invite our panelists to stick around for a couple of minutes to say goodbye informally. But thank you all for watching this video, for those who may see it in the future. And we'll see you again soon at Roosevelt.